Kadosh Boker Tov, Parashat Vayakhel. This is the Ben Ishchai on the Parasha in the Halachot. In the Pticha, now he starts as follows: Vaytzav Moshe v'yaviru kol b'machane lemor. Right, Moshe Rabbeinu commands, and all of a sudden they come and they give out a call. They give out a voice passing through the camp, saying. So he says like this: Nireli b'siyata dishmeya. It appears to me with the heavenly help of Minha Rabbeinu Arizal b'shar kavanot daf ayin vav sheshai elomot. We know that there's 310. We're going to say 310 worlds. Okay, this Shayel Lamot is brought down, whether it's a Mishnayot, of Pikavot, of this, of that, many different things. But listen to what the Arizal says. The Arizal says that the Shayel Lamot, the 310 worlds, are comprised of Resh Zain, Raz. You remember we spoke about this. Raz Olamot is the same numerical value as Or, right? Or is light. Or besitra dimina. Right, of the right side. So if you have 207 on one side, so you're going to have 103 to make 310, obviously. So 103, olamo besitra dismala. Velu kuf gimel hem mispar mincha. So now the 103 is the numerical value of mincha. Shehem mitorerim achar chatzot, because that's why the mincha is after chatzot. When do you start praying mincha? After chatzot. Az mitorer sitra dismala di Yitzchak. There you have what's called the sitra dismala, which is Yitzchak, right? And that's when it awakens, whether you want to call them din, whether you call them whatever you want, but that's going to be after chatzot. V'lechen nikret tfilat otozman, tfilat mincha. That's why it's called tfilat mincha. V'zeu shamar pasuk beYaakov, and that's why it says beYaakov Avinu, v'yikach min haba biyado mincha le'esav achiv. What does that mean that he took from everything which was with his hands? A mincha. We translate mincha as a present to Esav, his brother. But he says the mincha there was sod kuf gimel olamot shebiyad smol she'gvura. He went and he gave him the 103, which that's the mincha, which is the gvura. He gave it to Esav. V'lechen amar biyado. What does it mean with one hand? It says yad achat. V'lo amar biyadav. It doesn't say with his hands, plural, because if it was his hands, it's both his hands. Here he gave it with his left hand because he was giving gvura. Ki hem besod yad semalit. Because the left hand, right, is the Yad Simalit. That's what it is. Yaakov Avinu. So since Esav comes from the Gevura, therefore Natan Chelko Misham, he gave his chelik from that part, which is the Kuf Gimel, which is Sitra Dismala, which is the Dinim. He gave it to him from the Din. Says now the Ben Ishchai Ramazlo Esav. So now he has a remes, Achi. Yesh li Rav. What does Esav tell him? My brother Yaakov. Yesh li Rav, I have a lot. Rotze lomar, im ertze lekatreg al Yisrael, az kol yesh olamot hemli. He comes and says, if I want to really behemet, be mekatreg on Klal Yisrael, all the 310 are mine. What are you giving me a present? Ki'ilu za'ama, you're giving me something. You're giving me 103 olamot. All 310 are mine. He says, v'inei otiyot mincha, Hamorim, right? Amorim al gvurot v'adinim yachzeru latil liot otiyot nechama. So this mincha that he gave him, in the end, will become a nechama for us, a consolation for us. Al kan divrei Rabbeinu Zal Sham, Ein Sham. Right now, this is the words of the Arizal. These are the words of the Arizal Kadosh. Now says the Ben Ishchai, v'nei yadua. It is known ki Yaakov Avinu alav shalom nikra kol. Yaakov Avinu is called kol. How do we know that? They saw the Kol Kol Yaakov, right? Now, what do we just say in the parasha? How do we start off? Vaytzav Moshe v'yaviru kol, and then b'machane, which is a mincha. Remember the same words, so you understand what's going on here. V'arez zeot vav b'shem havaya baruchu hanikra kol. So therefore, this is the letter of vav, which is in the yud k vav k, right? The letter of vav, right? Which is called kol. V'anachnu tzrichim lematek elu ha'gimel ha'olamot. Right, so we have to come and we have to sweeten the 103 worlds, which are hinted in the word mincha. So therefore, when we come and we're sweetening the dinim in these 103 worlds, which is the mincha or the machaneh, then Yaakov Avinu, which is kol, he will be sholet even in this mincha. And then Esav will not even have power over these 103 worlds. That's explanation when it says, Vaytzav Moshe vayaviru kol. What does that mean? Shehu bechinat Yaakov. So comes Moshe Rabbeinu and he says, everyone, Kal Kadosh, call. We have to act like Yaakov Avinu. We have to learn Torah. We have to do all these things. Why? In order that Yaakov Avinu will be sholet. In what? B'machane. What is a machane? Gamken. Also in the Minha. Also in this machane. Also in this. Right? 103 worlds. Gamken. Shul Kov Gimel Olamot. Gamken. Shehem Ispar Machaneot. Yod Minha. The Az. Right? Exactly. That means he gave them right now to Esav. But you should know, even though he gave them to Esav, he's going to have a nechama. What's the nechama? The consolation. When we come and we act like Yaakov, even in the 103 that he gave to Esav, we also are sholet of that. We could be sholet of that as well. So he says, "Ve'az al yidechem lemor." Then through this, we are going to become lemor. What is lemor? Chalek hateva lishtaim. You have to bimechalek the word to two different words. Ve'kari base, you have to read it la more, right? Like lo, right? Not more. What does that mean? Rotze lomar lo yeh od meridut ba'olam. There will not be bitterness. More is bitterness, right? So he says, la mar, it will not be bitter, right? Ki meridut ba mitigboret hadinim v'tigboret hakashim v'gvurot hakashim. Right? What does it mean? Meridut, bitterness, comes from dinim. So therefore, when we come and we're going to be vayaviru kol b'machane, we're going to strengthen the kol Yaakov keneged the machane. What does it mean keneged machane? Meaning even on the machane, all of a sudden lemor, it won't be mar anymore. Lo mar, it will not be bitter anymore. Or yuvam b'siyata dishmaya, or another explanation, which we're going to understand b'siyata dishmaya. Diadua betfilat mincha lo yesh kriyat shema. Did you think about it? That the only tefillah that does not have kriyat shema, and it's the highest level of the tefillah, is what? There's no kriyat shema, and it's mincha. What's going on? So he says, afal pi sheish bazivur, ta yesh ba nefilat apayim. There is nefilat apayim, so that means there's nefilat apayim, but there's not going to be kriyat shema. What's going on? So he says vatam, and the reason why he hirshimu, or here it says a roshem hanishar mikriyat shema de shachrit shehu me'ule me'od yaspik letfilat mincha. The same imprint that you just did when you said kriyat shema shachrit lasts until the time of mincha. That's why we don't need to do kriyat shema mincha, because you still have the imprint from the shachrit. Just like Rabbeinu Arizal HaKadosh says, "Kanizkar b'svei kavano b'zeh she'amar vayitzav Moshe vayaviru kol b'machane." What is a kol? Kol is a remes to the sword of kriyat shema. Why? He says shepasuk rishon is yichud atiferet hanikret kol. We know that there's the 10 sefirot, and one of them is the tiferet. Tiferet is splendor, right? But we're saying here is that the tiferet is called kol, so therefore the kriyat shema, the first pasuk of kriyat shema, is a yichud of the tiferet, and therefore that is the kriyat shema, right? No. So now one more time. So we just said kol is the sword of kriyat shema, which is in the first pasuk of kriyat shema, which is the itfu sword of tiferet, which is called kol. B'machane ze otiyot mincha. Rotze lomar lehaavir ha'ara shel kriyat shema shehu hirshimu, right? Hirshimu anishar, right? Mishachrit b'mincha, which means the same roshem that was already left in shachrit is going to stay b'mincha. And that's why it says lemor ish v'isha yasu od melacha litrumat hakodesh. What does that mean? Techalek hateva lishtayim v'kari ba. Right? What does that mean? You have to divide the word melacha to male ko. What does that mean? The pasuk of Rishon, right, of Shema Yisrael is kaf hey otiot. There are 25 letters. That's ko, right? Kaf hey. Vekorin lo bezor hakadosh kaf hey atvan yichuda. There are 25 letters of yichud of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ve'otiot hem kelim shememaliim otam haorot shetzrichim lamshich b'chol havet. So these letters are like utensils, which you fill in, right, with the or, with the light, which is supposed to go the entire time. Right, filling up with 25 letters. Malech, which is melacha, bishvil tzorech trumat hakodesh, for the tefillat mincha. So that's why he comes and it says in the pasuk, when it says vayaviru kol b'machane, what is that kol b'machane? Kriyat shema, you should do it in mincha. Says the Torah, you don't need to do it in mincha. Why? He says, because what did he say right afterwards? He says, Ish v'isha al yasu od melacha letrumat hakodesh. A man or a woman, he does not have to do the melacha. What is the melacha? Kriyat shema, male ko, filling up the 25 letters of the first pasuk of Kriyat Shema, which is filling up the utensils of the Kedusha. You don't have to do that melacha letrumat hakodesh for mincha. Why? Because you already had it for shachrit. Ki tfilat mincha. The Kareat Trumat HaKodesh, why is it calling it Trumat HaKodesh? Ki b'mincha. Why is mincha called Trumat HaKodesh? Ki b'mincha olam malchut shiur komad chokhma ubina nikraim kodesh. Because during the time of mincha, the Malchut goes up another level to Chokhmah Bina, which are called Kodesh. Vayodea Soda Shevach he says here, Tefillat Mincha, he says if somebody is going to actually understand, right, the shvachim of what it is at Tefillat Mincha, that's why the Gemara says, that a person should always be careful in Mincha, because Eliyahu Navi was only answered during the time of the Mincha. Yavina remes sheramaznu, right? He'll understand also the remes that we just did. Al Tefillat Mincha b'tumat kodesh. Klomar titromem v'titaleh ad chokhmah ubina nikreim kodesh. They're going to go up until the chokhmah ubina, which are called kodesh. Okay, start. Amru Razal, right? The Gemara says in Masechet Berachot Vav Amud Bet, right? This is what the Chachamim say. Le'olam ya'adam zayi b'tfilat mincha. A person should always be careful with the tfilat mincha. Shel Eliyahu zachu latov lo na'ana b'tfilat mincha. This Eliyahu Navi was always answered only because of tfilat mincha. V'tzarich lizayer shelo le'omra belo chazara. A person should be careful not to say it without chazara. Meaning, many times people will only do it one amida. What does that mean? Because, right? So he says, Kim rak le'et tzorech ve'ones gamur. Unless mamash, it's you understand? Meaning that they try to do chazara. Don't just do it like that. Here it says also, look in the Divrei Rabba Mechaber in Parashat Truma Bet, and also the Rabba Latar, they say rak b'shat dachak. You understand? Like mamash, you know, always try to do it with chazara. V'tzarich sheichabek shtei yadayim zu im zo, and you should put your two hands together, one on top of each other. Yimanit al smalit, right? The right on top of the left, right? This is, by the way, this is brought down in Shulchan Aruch. This is the way that you're supposed to actually say tefillah. You should put it on your heart, and you're putting your right on top of the left. In Amidah, during Amidah, and you put it in your heart. In Amidah. Technically, Shulchan Aruch brings it down by all tefillot, but here he's bringing it down that you should do it for the tefillat mincha. He says, you should close your eyes, right? And you should pray. That is halacha aleph. Okay? Halacha bet says, Afal pi shematzinu b'shar hakavanot mefurash d'Rabbeinu Arizal, haya nizhar shelo litpalel mincha ela samuch l'shkiat hachama. Now, even though we already found in Shara Kavanot, Mefurash and the he was very, very careful not to pray mincha only samuch l'shkiat hachama. Again, it's a double negative, right? She'en, right? Hayaniza shelo litpalel ela. Right? It's a double negative, right? That's the way the connotation of speech. So he said that he only used to pray mincha samuch l'shkiat hachama. Kemoshe dashu Chazal, just like Chazal say al pasuk yiraucha im shamesh, right? That you should see with the sun. So it means in the morning it's next. You should see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the sun. Sitting in the mincha time, you're saying with the sun, that the sun is setting, and that's when you're saying the mincha. They used to wait. So they don't do that. אבל כל אדם צריך להיות זריז במצווה, you should be very careful שממתין הזמן זה, אפשר שיזדמן לו עסקים ויעבור הזמן, maybe it could be that a person is going to wait ממש until the last minute, he's going to lose the mincha. So a person has to be very, very careful. Here it says, וכתב הרב, שאין לאחר, this is the הליכות עולם. He says also, Yokul Yosef, he says, right, the Rav says that you should not wait lechatchila until shkiat hachama. Ulam kodem shkiat hachama samuch l'shkia, which is within half an hour. Mutar lipalel afilu lechatchila. Chen ogim b'tei knesset d'Rabim. Chen yideh shaya minhag Rabbeinu Arizal u'mikom makom mimira shelo yispik lipalel ad shkiat hachama. If you didn't pray until shkiat hachama, you should still do mincha b'ben shmashot with the chazara until the nighttime. So it means even if it's going to be afterwards, you would still do it with the chazara until the nighttime. That's what the Halichot Olam says. Gimel. Says Halacha Gimel, Tefillat mincha tiknota keneged tamid shel ben habayim. Remember, you have tamid shel shachar, tamid shel ben habayim. You have the korban tamid of the morning and in the afternoon. So the Tefillat mincha is parallel to, right, correlation to the tamid shel ben habayim. Uzman tamid shel ben habayim itchalto. Right, when is it going to start? It's going to start mishesh sha'ot u'mechza, from 6.5 hours, which is half an hour after, right, chatzot hayom. But they wouldn't bring the korban tamid from that time, which is shesh u'mechza. Ki im rak be'erev Pesach, only on erev Pesach shechal be'erev Shabbat. That comes out on erev Shabbat. Shetzchim nitazeh bekorban Pesach, kol mishikanes Shabbat, because you have to be melsek bekorban Pesach before the Shabbat starts. The tzliyato eno dochesh Shabbat, because the tzliyah, the roasting, does not push off the Shabbat. So therefore, so they have to do the korban tamid early, in order that they could already do the korban Pesach, because the korban Pesach is always after the tamid, not before. So therefore, they used to be magdim on that day to do the shechita tamid immediately in the time when the Torah said, right, which is half an hour after chatzot. But every other day, that's why that's the mincha gdola, mincha ktana. Now you understand, right? Mincha gdola is 6.5 hours. Mincha ktana is 9.5 hours. Al ken lechatechila, and therefore lechatechila lo yipallu mincha lamitesha v'mechza. You should always pray 9.5 hours into the day, which is mincha ketana. Velo kodem, not beforehand, which is called in Lashon Chazal mincha ketana. B'diavad, right? Here it says b'diavad. If a person prayed shesh v'chetz me'omechza yatsa. Ta'ika tamid be'erev Pesach shecha be'erev Shabbat. Shekar mishesh v'mechza. V'zeu nikra b'Lashon Chazal mincha gedola. So here on the Gimel, it brings down the Chendat Rambam U'Maran Shulchan Aruch. that it's b'diavad if you pray early, right? Shadif li'palel mincha ketana, that it's always better to pray mincha ketana. However, though, people that pray mincha gedolah, right, it's also good according to halacha. They have what to rely on because it's brought down in the Zohar HaKadosh. And also, furthermore, if you're going to start eating in the afternoon, you're not allowed to eat a seudah once it becomes the time of the that they have to pray. So therefore, even if they're going to leave a shomer to remember, I mean, they're leaving a watchman to remember, whatever it is, not a lot of people, not everyone says that it helps. Nevertheless, the people that come and they have aruchat tzahorayim before Tefillat Mincha, they also have what to rely on, right? Because besides the fact that it's a minhag in a lot of places to be mekel, also they put a shomer that they're going to remember to pray. They also have a zman kavua to pray every single day, right? But it's better to do, right, the mincha gdula in such a scenario in order that they could eat sudat tzahorayim beheter according to everybody. So therefore, obviously, like what happens many times, whether it's in Kolim or other places, they're going to have a sudah, right, and everything. So many times they will pray mincha gdula, even lechatechila, because they're going to have a meal. So once they're going to have a meal, so then that's what they're going to pray. Daled. Shaot elu, right? These hours of sheshu mechza, teshu mechza, whether it's going to be 6.5 hours into the day, 9.5 hours in the day, nikrain shaot zmaniot. They are considered shaot zmaniot, meaning it's not on the watch. You're not talking about on the watch. They're hours of the day. How do you do that? So it all depends on the day. If the day is long or the day is short. Obviously, it's summer, the day is long. Winter, the day is short. You're going to divide the day into 12 different portions. So now here there's going to be a machloket. This is going to be the machloket between the Magen Avraham and the Gaon Vilna and the Shulchan Aruch HaGraz. What does that mean? The Magen Avraham is going to always say the Mesharina me'amud hashachar at Tzedek Kochavim. You always do from amud hashachar, which is dawn, until dusk, until Tzedek Kochavim. V'yesh omrim, the Gaon Vilna and Shulchan Aruch HaGraz, they're going to learn from the Netzach Hama until Shekiah, from Netz until Shekiah. Exactly. That means, for example, you're going to take, right? Utsvara rishona yikar dechashina lechumra l'shaer mishnud l'shaer Tzedek Kochavim. So now says the Ben Ish Chai, we paskin lechumra basically. We're paskin like the Magen Avraham. That's also Shitat Maran basically. That we go from the dawn Lot HaShachar until Tzedek Kochavim. So therefore, for example, right? I don't have it in front of me, but if you would take it, let's say, for example, you would take, let's raise very good my zmanim. Let's say you're going to come and you're going to take my zmanim. So that's one more time. So we're doing now 5:39 is a lot of shachar. What time is
6:47?
6:47 in Tzedek Kochavim?
No, Tzedek Kochavim is according to Rabbeinu Tam or Tzeis?
Okay, let's do Rabbeinu Tam.
Rabbeinu Tam is 7:31.
7:31. So what did he say? 5:39?
Yeah.
Until 7:31. So we're talking about almost 14 hours, correct?
No, there's
It's
about almost 30 minutes between Tzeis and Tzeis Rabbeinu Tam.
Yeah. So we're talking about it's 14 hours minus 8 minutes. You said no? 8 minutes? 9 minutes. So 14 hours minus 9 minutes. So it's 13 hours
51.
and 51 minutes. So first of all, let's try to do this very simple. So 13 times 60 is 780 minutes. Plus, you said 51? 51. So the day is 831 minutes. Divided by 12 is 69, right? 0.25. That means basically almost 70 minutes. That means every single hour is not hour, it's around an hour and nine and a half minutes, let's say. So it's an hour and 9.5 minutes. So that means every sha'ah is an hour and 9.5 minutes. Okay?
6 hours. 9.5 hours.
So therefore, if you're going to go the 9.5 hour, so it's
9 hours.
so you're basically going forward, right? That every single hour, yeah, because you're adding minimum 10 minutes. So if 10 minutes for every single hour from a lot of shachar. Okay, so now that is going to be
5:39 plus 10.5 hours.
Now, if you're doing that,
no, it's 9.5 hours, but the 9.5 hour, every single hour is really an hour and 10 minutes. Now, if we do the other way around, what time was Netz?
6:48.
6:48 until?
And Shketa is 6:19. So that's 11.
Now, says here in the V'chen minhag pashut, po irenu Bagdad yaeh. דשאים מעמוד השחר צדק החוכבים, כי אצלנו חושבים צדק החוכבים שליש שעה אחר קריאת המגרב וירזו, וכך קיבלנו לשער בזה מין, right, עטרת ראשי, הרב הגאון אומר זקני רבנו משה חיים זילהה, right, זיכרונו לחיי העולם הבא. So basically, says the Ben Ish Chai, we just finished Dalit, that basically what the minhag also in Baghdad is also to do like the Magen Avraham. Now, if you actually pay attention in the Mai Zmanim, when you actually look at the Zmanim at the end, it only gives you the Shah Zmanit of the Gaon. It doesn't give you the Shas Manit of Magen Avraham. But again, the Ben Ish Chai just told you that Halachah L'Maaseh we're passing like the Magen Avraham, and there's a lot of nafkaminot. When I say a lot of nafkaminot, we're talking about tons of nafkaminot to do with Halachah L'Maaseh when it's, for example, Ben Hashmashot. Ben Hashmashot, right, is what? Is 13 and a half minutes, but 13 and a half, okay? So Rav Ovadia Yosef brings down, this is in Alichot Olam Chelek Aleph, he says, Linyan halacha, if somebody wants to count the days from the Zrichat HaShemesh until Shekiah, meaning that they want to do like the Gaon, which is nets until Shekiah, whether it's Lakel or Lachmir, they have what to rely on. Nevertheless, which things which are in Doraita, you should be Machmir to do like the Magen Avraham. And to do with Sof Achilat Zman Chametz and Sof Zibiur Chametz, even though it's the Rabbanan, right? Because he says Minha Torah, it's only until Chatzot, and Chachamim were the ones that added on, right? Still, we have the minhag of doing it from Alot HaShachar until Tzedek Kochavim. That's why you're going to see Erev Pesach, we are going to be machmirim in these things, even though it's the Rabbanan, because technically you have until Chatzot. So therefore, anything to do with Doraita, usually we are machmirim, right? And that's why also, the Chatchila, we always try to do the Kriyat Shema of the Magen Avraham. Nevertheless, to do with Kriyat Shema of Shachrit, even though it's Doraita, you also have the Shitot, that Minha Torah, it's enough until 3 hours into the day, and you could be Mekel. It means even after 3 hours into the day, and therefore you could be Mekel, you could do like the Gaon. Okay, fine. And to do with the Zman of the Tzedek Kochavim, which is going to be 3/4 of a meal after Shekiah, which is going to be 13 and a half minutes Zmaniot after Shekiat Chama, to do with things which are Minha Torah, obviously like to do with Seta Shabbat or Kippur, so then we should try to be Machmir until Rabbeinu Tam, which is an hour and a quarter Zmanit after Shekiat Chama. Halacha Hey, okay? Halacha Hey in the Ben Ish Chai. Yizaher lifroa sechar sachir biyomo kodem tfilat mincha. Some people nowadays they don't pay attention to this, even though it's a siman in Shulchan Aruch. I remember learning it. It's something incredible in Choshen Mishpat. People are not careful nowadays that they do not pay their workers on time. Meaning people think, you know what, big deal. Okay, so I'll pay him. You know, sometimes I try to beg people. I want to pay you. Give me the bill, and they just don't want. You know, no, there's a mitzvah, there's a chovah, it's an obligation. That it's a pasuk in the Bible. You heard of the Bible? Pasuk. The pasuk says it. This is Rabbeinu Chaim Vital Zal. The Rabbeinu Arizal Ayanizah Meod. He was very careful. That even if he didn't have money to pay, right? Which means he would come and he would ask for a loan or whatever to pay the guy in order to pray mincha afterwards. Meaning he wouldn't pray mincha before paying off the debt. Right? Somebody just worked for him. Pay on the spot. What are you waiting for? Another week, month, year? Right away. He used to take a halva, a loan. He used to pay the Arizal HaKadosh. The Arizal HaKadosh would take a loan, pay, right? 1 second. He used to pay the debt, and then afterwards he used to pray mitpalel b'mitzvot tfilat mincha. Shaya Omer, but he used to say, how am I going to pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And there was a mitzvah, such a great mitzvah that came to my hand and I didn't do it. I didn't fulfill it. How could it be? Al ken kol adam yezahir bezariz b'davar hazeh. So to be very careful, pay your workers on time. Pay your workers on time. Says Halacha Vav, אף על גב לתפילת המנחה אין נתינת צדקה מוכרחת כמו בשחרית. That means even though by תפילת המנחה, the giving over of the tzedakah is not the exact same like שחרית. עם כל זה, still, היה רבנו אריזל נוהג לתת צדקה גם ממנחה קודם שבאלה. He also used to have the minhag of giving tzedakah before praying also מנחה. הוא נותן 3 פרוטות, and he used to give the 3 פרוטות, עד מה שאמר בשחרית, just like he used to do in שחרית. תהיינו, which means שנותן ביד הגבאי, he used to give in the hand of the גבאי, or העני, or in the hand of the עני. השני פרוטות ביחד, 2 of them together, ואחר כך השלישית, and afterwards the third one. וסוד שני שלישים ושליש, like 2/3 and 1/3, כנזכר בצדקה שנותנים את דבר בקול, right? Just like we write ואתה מושל בקול, which is in ויברך תביב כנזכר להם, which means I've actually seen people that they give the 3 coins, but they do a mistake. They either give 1, 1, 1, it's supposed to be 2 and then 1. That's the way that's supposed to be. וכל זה מפורש בשאר הכוונות דף ע"ו עמוד ג' יין שם, וכן ראוי לכל אדם לעשות it. It's fitting for everybody to do that. Right? Even though you could do, right? But that's al pi Kabbalah. Ve'ashrei ha'ish, fortunate, right, is the person which is going to be nizhar להתפלל תפילת mincha with tefillin which are called shimusha rabba. Shaya Rabbeinu Arizal nizhar b'zeh tamid. He was always careful in putting them. He used to put on tefillin especially just for mincha, but it's a special tefillin. It wasn't tefillin Rashi, it wasn't tefillin Rabbeinu Tzon, it was a special tefillin called shimusha Rabbah. So he says, וכבר כתבתי לב בהלכות תפילין שהיה עטרת ראשי, אדוני אבי זילה, יזל להתפלל מנחה בחודש אלול וימים נוראים מתפילין שימוש רבה. So his father was very careful to pray in the month of Elul in ימים נוראים with these תפילין of שימוש רבה, אני מנחה, יזכר לטובה בעולם הזה ובעולם הבא. והנוהג בכך, and somebody that's accustomed to this, ייזהר שלא יהיו מעוטף בטלית ותפילין אחר שקיעת החמה. But be very careful not to have the talit and tefillin after שקיעה, as is brought down in ספר הכוונות, ושרבינו עליזה חושש בגלל זה מאוד, because he was very חושש בזה, right? Even though that's not halacha, because remember, according to Maran, as long as you put on the talit and tefillin before mincha, you're allowed to have them on until after mincha. But according to the Kabbalah, you're not allowed to. So that's why he was very careful that he used to pray the mincha, but immediately right after mincha, he used to take off the tefillin of shimush rabba because he wouldn't have tefillin afterwards. Mitzvah gedola liot me'asara rishonim mincha. Now the mitzvah is not only just in shachrit that you should be the first 10, also in mincha you should be the first 10 coming to the Bet Knesset. Also you have the same thing. Okay.
Still exists? We all have them?
Right, Halacha Zayin says, "Ma mincha nimshach ad halayla ledivrei chachamim, aval Rabbi Yehuda peleg mincha, plag mincha." Right. So basically, like this. Basically, we have that the time of mincha is going to be until nighttime, according to the chachamim. But according to chachamim, you have mincha is before nighttime and arvit is after nighttime. According to Rabbi Yehuda, mincha is until peleg mincha, or until and arvit is going to be after peleg mincha. Right. Two different ways of reading it, whether it's peleg or plag. Remember, peleg just means half. Right, that you're doing half. So it's half of the mincha. Shehu ad yud aleph shaot chaser ravia. Now, one more time. If you have 9.5 hours into the day, how much is a day? Remember, mincha kitana is 9.5 hours into the day. How much is the day? 12 hours. 9.5 until 12? 3.5. Half of that? An hour and a quarter. 2.5. So how much is half of that? An hour and a quarter. So that's why plag mincha is always an hour and a quarter. So no, an hour and a quarter before. Either before Tzedek Kochavim or before Shekia. It's either before Shekia or before Tzedek Kochavim, but it's always an hour and a quarter. Okay, so now that's why it's called Peleg Mincha. Peleg Mincha. That's what you just said. Peleg Mincha. Peleg is half of the mincha. So you take mincha kitana until the end, right? It's 2.5. Half of 2.5 is an hour and a quarter. So Plaga Mincha is always 1 hour and a quarter zmanit, right? Before
what? Before
12 hours. What? So basically, it says here like this: the time of mincha is until nighttime, until shekia, right? Until nighttime, according to Chachamim, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's going to be plaga mincha, okay? Which is 11 hours and a quarter, right? Remember, we're always talking about an hour and a quarter before. Now we just said here before tzedek kochavim, velo nifseka halacha kechad minayu, right? And the halacha was not paskin like one of them. They are sikna, and therefore we said davad kemor avad, udeavad kemor avad. That means basically whichever way you go, you're okay. If you do like this one, you're okay. If you do like the other one, you're going to be okay, right? So he says, as long as you're always going to do like one of them. Because if you did like the Rabbanan and you prayed mincha after plag and mincha, so then you cannot say arbit until the nighttime, right? That's what he says over here, right? Before the nighttime, like Rabbi Yehuda, right? Because then that's going to become a stira, contradiction. You understood the contradiction? I mean, it's basically like this. If you're going to pray mincha after plag and mincha, what did you just say? That after Plag Mincha is daytime. So then you're not allowed to pray Mincha, Arvit, during that time. That's the stira that a lot of people don't know about. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Stira, what does it mean? Sometimes they're going to say, we're going to pray Mincha right now. Okay, fine, Mincha right now. But one second, you're praying Arvit right now? How are you praying Arvit now? You're praying, it didn't pass Ashkiya. It didn't pass anything, which means that you're saying Mincha and Arvit at the same time. It's either daytime or nighttime. You understand?
You can do Mincha before Plag.
And all this is the Dina de Gemara, it's according to the Dina de Gemara. But nowadays we have the minhag to be mekel, they have what to rely on, right? If they're going to do that. So here Rav Vadia argues and he says lechatchila, right? You should not do that. You should pray Arvit even after Tzedek Kochavim. Nevertheless, if you do Tefillat Arvit after Shekia during Ben Hashmashot, and then you're going to read it at nighttime, you have what to rely on, and that's the concept of the Rabotenu Mekubalim that you should always do after the Shekiyat Techama. So then he says here also, yom after Plag Mincha, they have what to rely on. And he says, there was a minhag also. Some people had that minhag. That minhag was based upon that people wouldn't come back to the synagogue. But sometimes it's a 5-minute difference, so it just doesn't make sense. You understand? For that 5 minutes, it just doesn't make sense.
Okay, what time do we have?
He says, Nevertheless, they don't have this minhag unless it's going to be at Sibur, but the Yachid that's going to be praying in his house, he cannot do the Trekule de Satre, but if he's going to pray Mincha, after plugging Mincha, he's not allowed to pray Arvit until after Tzedek Chovim. And an Erev Shabbat, if the Yachid wants to do Arvit before nighttime, he should try to make sure that he does Mincha before plugging Mincha. But during the rest of the days, he shouldn't do so, right? He should, but it's better to do Arvit at nighttime, right? 100%. Okay? The Katavti B'Sifri HaKatan, and I wrote in my book, right, Mekavtzel, to be Isha, so to do with a woman, we're not makpidim on this, stira. Meaning, if a woman wanted to pray Mincha and Arvit and she does it at the same time, whatever it is, we're not makpidim on her. Why? Because she's busy doing the things in the house. So it's considered shatadachak, just like a tzibur, and therefore there's no problem. And also a man that's going to be in his house that he prayed Mincha after plugging Mincha, and if he's going to wait until the nighttime, he's not going to say Arvit or whatever it is. So then again, obviously that person, so he's going to do it, even though it's a stira, but it's better that he does it than not to do it at all. Okay? Fine. Cheshbon plaga mincha, halacha chet. Okay, we're going to finish with this one. Cheshbon plaga mincha. It says, is bitpalel bo arvit kachu. This is the way that you're supposed to do. Aminhag po ilenu Baghdad yaeh. So we already explained you do from Loto Shachar until Tzedek Kochavim. Minagenu, now minhag is Lachshov Tzedek Kochavim shlish sha'a achar kriyat ha'magrev shu koreh besof yudbet sha'ot mamash. Was mamash at the end of 12 hours, and that's the cheshbon. Mincha Ketana is 2.5 hours before the nighttime. Half of that time is Shava Revia, is before the Tzedek Kochavim is going to be Yetziatam shlish sha'a achar kriyat ha'magrev. It's going to be a third of an hour after the kriyat ha'magrev. And if it's going to be after, the day is going to be 12 hours, which is the Muda Shachar. So then Tefillat Arvit is going to be right, Beshad Yud Aleph 50 Dakim. So it's going to be in the 11th hour and 50 minutes. Ketzad, from the time of the Plag Mincha, which is a Sha'av Revia, Kiniskalel, you're going to take off Shlish Sha'ah, which is from the Kriyat HaMagrav, until the Tzedek Chovim, so that it's going to happen. The truth is, we're just going to skip this because this is the calculating in Baghdad, they had the Kriyat HaMagrav, we don't have all those things now. So obviously we don't, it's not going to apply to us. But until when can you pray Mincha? This is Halachot Tet. Until when are you allowed to pray Mincha? So he says, Noda, gam l'sfarat ha'matirim b'docha, ken li'tpalel lecha ben hashmashot. So you don't pray after ben hashmashot. The yadua, and it's known that the shiur ben hashmashot is going to be 3/4 of a meal, which is 13.5 minutes, right? Zmaniyot, obviously, van shulchan aruch siman samech aleph. And here, Baghdad, they actually checked and they saw shebimkom gavoa, right? Shebayin niret shkiat hachama 7 minutes before Kriyat HaMagrev. And therefore, I wrote down in the Sifri HaKatan, Rav Pe'alim in the Tshuva, that Poirenu, you're not allowed to pray Mincha until Shisha Dakim after Kriyat HaMagrev. So you have 6 minutes after Kriyat HaMagrev. Again, all the Kriyat HaMagrev is what happened in Baghdad. Because until 6 minutes, it's called Ben Hashmashot. And they could pray Mincha B'Shadadacha according to Matinim. And if so, right, they shouldn't start, right? Lo yatchilu, they shouldn't start Lipalel until after 4 minutes after Kriyat HaMagrev. In order, the Tefillat Mincha, the majority will be during the Nishmashot. And also, there's some places that Shkiat HaChama by them is 10 minutes before Kriyat HaMagrev, just like Chaim Palat brings down on one city. According to what's written in their city. Okay? The Tefillat Mincha, Halacha Yod says, in Tefillat Mincha, if you started Hashem Sfatay Tiftach and you still didn't start the Bracha, and you heard Kaddish Ukdusha Berechu, I brought down in my Sefer Mikavtzel, you're allowed to answer Kaddish and Kedusha, and then again you start the Pasuk of Hashem Sfatay Tiftach. So it means on Mincha, you could do that. On Shachrit, no. The second you start Hashem, you're already in the middle of Amidah. But in Mincha, if you said Hashem Sfatay Tiftach v'yagiti latecha, you hear Kaddish or Kedusha, answer. And then you start again the Pasuk of Hashem Sfatay Tiftach. The Apagav the Bemet, this Pasuk is really the Amidah. Lo dami didini yulatzon. It's not the same halacha like yulatzon. Alishon, that we wrote down that is part of the tefillah. Because even though you heard kaddish udusha after the end of the bracha, you shouldn't answer anything before yulatzon. There it's different because if you did answer right, you're making a hefsek, you're making an interruption in the middle of the tefillah. And there's nothing what to fix. Here, since there's no shem malchut, you could just say the pasuk again and then that's it. However, though I had a doubt when a person started Baruch Atah Hashem, because can you say lamedeni chukecha? Sometimes when a person makes a bracha and it was going to be a bracha al-vatala, what do? Lamedeni chukecha, Baruch Atah Hashem, lamedeni chukecha, and then you get out of the bracha al-vatala, right? So I had a doubt on that, and then afterwards you should start again. No, you already said Shem Hashem. Meaning, for example, let's say I took a croissant, right, and I'm going to make a mizunot. So I made whatever mizunot. Then I took a cracker. Now I forgot, I didn't realize it was on the table. I had it in mind, and again I just got Baruch Atah Hashem, borei mizunot. Now, right before I said Baruch Atah Hashem, I just realized Baruch Atah Amonai. I said Amonai. I just went 1 second. What am I going to do? Mizunot again? I just did a mizunot. So you say Lamedeni chukecha. And Lamdeni Chukecha takes you out of the problem of Beracha Levatala. Why? Because it basically makes it that instead of making it a Beracha Levatala, it makes it like a praise. Because Baruch Hashem Lamdeni Chukecha is a pasuk. So it's not a Beracha, it's making it into a praise. And therefore that takes away from the power, the mistake of a Beracha Levatala. So the same thing here. He just said here like this. Hashem Seftai Tiftach in the morning. The second you say Hashem Seftai Tiftach, you're already in the middle of Amidah. Nothing to talk about. During Minha, right? There's no Berachot of Kriyat Shema. There's no nothing. So during Minha, I say Hashem Seftai Tiftach, I heard Kaddish Ukdusha. Answer Kaddish, answer Kedusha. Then what do? Say again Hashem Seftai Tiftach says, but I had a doubt. What happens if I said Baruch Hashem? I said Hashem Seftai Tiftach v'yagid Baruch Hashem. Should I finish Lamdeni Chukecha, answer Tvarim Shebikdusha, and then start again, or do I continue? I had a doubt in that. That's what he says. I had a doubt. Okay, and therefore he comes and he says, or maybe you shouldn't do it. So he says that you shouldn't do it because it could be that you're mentioning the Shem Shemayim Levatala. So therefore he says, I don't have an answer for it. So because of that, he just says, I don't have an answer.
Better just to keep going there.
Yeah, it's just better to keep on going, and that's it. Okay? Ezrat Hashem, we stop here.